Hello and welcome to Coconut Chats, everyone. Today you've got me, Harita, and I'm joined by a guest in America today. So he's a bit different to some of the past guests we've had, but I thought it would be quite timely to interview him, given that a documentary that he's been on Netflix has obviously been showing on Netflix recently and it's been trending. So, if you've watched Bad Vegan on Netflix, you would have seen Joey being one of the past employees that was interviewed on the documentary series. He was the longest standing employee at Pure Food and Wine, and he worked there for 10 years as the beverage director. All of that came to an unfortunate end when Anthony, aka Shane Fox, frauded and manipulated the owner, who was also his partner, Sarma, so the staff couldn't get paid for months on end. After the employee disputes and protests of not getting paid caused the restaurant to shut down, when Joey left Pure Food and Wine, he started making a hot sauce for the love of his life. She didn't want any sugars, additives, or preservatives, so he set out to make a sauce that fit all this criteria, as well as obviously tasting good and something that would sell. So it's now commonly sold in stores across USA, and he's named it after himself, and he's named it Joey's Hot Sauce. Hi, Joey. How are you?
Hi, I am well. Nice to see you. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us all the way from America for this podcast. So, can you briefly explain, especially to our listeners that maybe haven't watched Bad Vegan, what actually happened at Pure Food and Wine and how the situation of the staff not being paid actually happened?
Well, yeah, I'd love to, give my insight. Pure Food and Wine was this incredible little mecca. I worked there for a really long time, and I was not really handsomely paid early on. We were a struggling restaurant. We had some great financial backers. Jeffrey Chuttero, who's in the documentary, and Matthew Kenny was like an up and coming star chef. He was like a celebrity chef, and Sarma and Matthew got together and they pitched this concept to them. And, we basically launched Pure Food and Wine. I wasn't there from the very beginning of the restaurant, but I was there within their first year of operation. And I came in first as a waiter, then became bartender, and then became beverage director. So I was one of the longest standing employees, and there was a collective team that helped ensure the success of Pure Food and Wine. Different chefs came along. We just started to evolve. The restaurant evolved. The crew, the staff. We had a longevity. There was a split up with Matthew and Sarma. We kind of get on. We that stayed there got on the Sarma camp, and we were rooting for her, and we wanted that restaurant to be successful. And it took some time, but it developed the momentum, and it became one of the most successful plant-based restaurants, I think, in the history of plant-based restaurants. I mean, New York City, it's really hard. It's a competitive field. B, plant-based, it's a minority of your audience is just plant-based, and particularly at that time. You know, I helped basically develop the wine list. That was a organic, biodynamic, and sustainable wine list. We had a sake curated cocktail list that I created. And, for a long time, we were paid and compensated. But there was a month during the operation when things started to ramp up with AKA Shane. It was kind of projected to us as if, like, hey, we're trying to buy this restaurant from the initial investor, and we want to make it seem like it's not doing well. So that's why we're just trying to make it seem like, you guys are not being paid. And he would like get together and just ensure people to kind of keep them strung along. And for that month time, you have this long history of being paid and compensated and everything going great. And, you just wanted to believe that these things were what they were what he was presenting was what the truth was, and it was getting to the point where nobody was willing to stay one paycheck longer, and then we were compensated. Actually, everyone was paid. So after everyone got paid, there was this meeting that Anthony had, and someone recorded that meeting. I don't know if you remember that part of the documentary, where he basically, Sarma wasn't there, and he was just talking about how he's like become partners. He's going to be taking care. He's going to take care of everyone, and that we're going to be okay moving forward. But we all felt uneasy about that meeting. And then came the day again where our paychecks were bouncing, and there was a walkout. Everyone was not taking a moment longer. I reached out to Sarma, emailed, text message, called her, and she sent this email to everyone saying that, oh, it was something with the banks, and don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And they pretty much, everyone had it up to there, and there was a walkout, and that's when she basically lost. The restaurant had closed one time, and then she raised the money and opened it again. So it was like a month's period where we didn't get paid, but then we got paid. And from my understanding, there was another round of people not getting paid after she reopened the restaurant. I personally didn't feel comfortable into partnering with her to reopen Pure Food and Wine. Instinctually, it felt for me that I wasn't gonna. It didn't feel right. I didn't feel like great about the circumstances, so I didn't rejoin the team that relaunched Pure Food and Wine in the second phase.
It's probably good that you didn't, since the same problem happened again anyway. And I guess, when you work in hospitality, like you said before, you're not getting paid a whole lot anyway. And a lot of people that, hospitality is not easy work. You're on your feet and this and that, and doing so much hard work and not getting paid at all without a proper explanation it's not fair to anyone.
More difficult for the back of the house than it was for the front of the house, because like the paychecks that people were working in the kitchen, that was their entire paycheck. Whereas, the front of the house, we had our cash tips that we were divvying up. We had a tip pool. Yeah. So we were like distributing that, and that kind of kept us moving along. But the back of the house that weren't getting paid and compensated, that was extremely challenging for that part of the team.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that actually, but yeah, that's so true. So obviously, if she was your boss for 10 years, she's not just your boss, but she would have become a friend, which I know a lot of you in the documentary actually mentioned that she was a friend, but then her personality changed obviously as she got into a relationship with Shane or Anthony or whatever he likes to be known as. So how did it affect your friendship with Sarma, knowing that, she's not the direct one at fault, but in a way she kind of is as well? When all of this ended and the restaurant shut down, how did it affect your friendship with her?
It was very difficult for me to kind of process. There were a lot of victims in the circumstances. We invested into her, we invested into the success, we believed in that place. And it really took me a long time. And even after the documentary, after it aired, I struggled with watching parts of the documentary. I didn't feel like there was a sense of remorse or awareness to the pain that her choices, she was, make it clear, I believe she was a victim. I believe that she was under coercive control. And I was interviewed by this woman, Laura. She does crime analysis, and she's a professional at what she does. And she gave me some more insight to, the relationship with Anthony and Sarma, and how, he really just little by slowly just kind of like started gaslighting her.
Mm.
And you know, and
Brainwashing.
the one thing about the documentary that really wasn't brought up is just, this like topic of addiction. I feel like that Anthony had this addiction to the casinos, and Sarma, there's a codependent, there's a level of addiction to just enabling somebody like that too. So I feel like that was a big missing piece, but it's even beyond that, because he is like, there's psychopathic, behavior on his part. And then there's definitely, this dominant force that, he was very manipulative, and he is just, it's tragic. It's a tragic story so I had difficulty, and I feel like I'm more at peace today about, all of it than while it was happening. At first, I really like stood on Sarma's corner for a really long time, and it was challenging for me. And but then, as more awareness started to happen, I became like more empathetic and more sympathetic towards her situation, because a lot of people say that, oh, she was in on it. I'm like, in on what? Like destroying her life, like
Destroying her
it's
own restaurant. Yeah.
everything she works so hard to create.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Because yeah, if she was in on it, well, I don't think her intention was to shut down the restaurant that she spent so many years building up. So yeah, I think when I watched the Netflix documentary series, I also kind of felt really sorry for her as well, because I had all these questions of like, how could she fall for, the things that he said? But then at the same time, when you're in a relationship with someone, sometimes you'll do anything for that relationship, and those lines get blurred between what's wrong and right. Yeah. And so you can't help but feel sorry for her, because you know that her plan was not to end up in a documentary like this, or to have her own restaurant shut down. I guess, like, not being paid for months on end isn't only a nuisance, but of course it causes financial strain to the lives of all the people that worked there, and also your families, if they are dependent on your salaries or dependent on you having a job. And I know you mentioned a little bit before about how some of you kind of got by in these times of not getting paid, but how did all of you actually cope during this time that you were basically working full time for free?
Yeah, like I mentioned, it was like a month's time that happened, and we were going on like longer paycheck cycles. And so it was challenging. It was a challenging time. And we were just encouraged to just hang in there. And but unfortunately, like I said, they did finally compensate, and they did pay everybody for that month. So everyone was paid up to par prior to the restaurant shutting down. Once we didn't get paid again. So it was a difficult time for all of us. But more importantly, I feel more tragically was for the back of the house. And I feel like, so bad that they had to go through that.
Hmm. So it was shown in the documentary that quite a few of you protested outside the restaurant and refused to go to work and things like that when you didn't get paid for that month. But I guess, what you see on the documentary might not be everything that actually happened. So how did you all actually get out of this mess in the end? Like, did you just decide to resign? Or when the restaurant shut down, did you just decide, okay, yep, that's it, we're not coming back? How did you all get out of the mess, and how did you all make sure that you got your dues and your pay in the end?
Well, I mean, Sarma, the place shut down, and when the rug got pulled out from underneath all of our feet, an opportunity came on the West Coast for me to do some consultant work, and it was, a traumatizing, really challenging time because there was it was in the middle of winter, and I believe it was just post like Christmas, so it wasn't really like a time for hiring. Nobody was like hiring at that time of the year, and the trauma of like a place that you've dedicated 10 years, it was really difficult time for me. And I was just putting closure. I think it was on social media, and a friend of mine reached out about an opportunity in Los Angeles for a very similar concept. Someone that was inspired by the restaurant Pure Food and Wine, and they opened up a place downtown in Los Angeles called The Springs, and they asked if I would, be interested in doing some consultant work out there, or potentially even becoming a full-time manager. And I never really had, I'd been in the restaurant industry for, over 20 years, but I never really took on like a consulting gig, and it's a completely different animal. But they were willing to put me up, and I just knew that they were customers that came to Pure Food and Wine. So I just felt like it was an opportunity, and I dove right into it. So I really wasn't part of the team that like protested in front of the restaurant. I really wasn't involved with like what was going on in New York when it shut down. I was too immersed in just, trying to provide for my fiance, who's not my wife. She was my fiance. And I was, bi-coastal. I was just living there and immersed in this 3-month consulting job in Los Angeles downtown.
Yep. That's good that, you had a way out, I guess, because I'm assuming some other people that lost their jobs out of the restaurant didn't just have another opportunity waiting to go to. And I don't fully know what employment laws in America are like, because obviously I live in New Zealand, but I can't imagine things like redundancy payout and income insurance and things like that being a big thing. Like if you've lost your job all of a sudden, I'm assuming some people that worked there might have been jobless for a few months before they actually found another source of income. And that's probably the first thing I thought when I watched that.
Yeah, like applied for unemployment, but unemployment plays a fraction of what you actually make in your career. Yeah, it was a stressful time. It was extremely stressful. And I was grateful to be, I kind of got the West Coast bug, because I was, New York winters are pretty harsh.
Yeah.
About them. So like I was there, and I was in downtown LA, and I was like, this is winter. I was like, kind of the place that they put me up, I was like at a poolside, and I'm like, wow, this is winter. And I was really trying to see if there was a possibility. I had the potential of perhaps maybe starting up a plant-based regional Italian restaurant that I was, trying to launch at the time. But that those ideas of grandeur weren't what God's plans were for me. So I just, I quickly, pulled out of like trying to pull that together into full-time employment. And I moved out there, and I actually went to work for Matthew at Plant Food and Wine for a short period of time. And then from there, I went into this restaurant, this really extremely high volume, really popular restaurant on the west side in Venice that was called Scopa Italian Roots, which, it's close to my Italian roots. It's the dishes like the rice ball and the chicken parmigiana. Like these were things, and stylistically they were kind of like exactly how my mom raised me, and it kind of got me back connected to my personal Italian roots, and how much an incredible chef my mother was. And I really kind of took that for granted as a child. Didn't realize the depth of her sensibility in the kitchen, and how I actually even took my own personal skills as a chef for granted because I inherited a lot of her skills in the kitchen. And I also was extremely influenced by a lot of great chefs that I was around. And that's what really led me into, creating this sauce for my Joey's hot sauce for Lisa, the love of my life. Like you mentioned earlier, Lisa was just frustrated at the hot sauce like shelf going, why does they have to put sugar and binders and everything? And our food industry is really broken. That was one thing that pulled me into Pure Food and Wine. We had like organic food, and there wasn't any of like McFoolery that goes on in a lot of like restaurants. There's a lot of like shortcuts and a lot of manipulation and just and the food is not really that healthy for you when you go eat out. A lot of people don't even know that. And there was integrity. So the quality of the ingredients really was something that I was around in a lot of these like high-end restaurants. So I was inspired to make this sauce for Lisa, and took everything I learned from my mom and everything I learned from Pure Food. My life basically went into this bottle, and the love that I had for my wife, and no intention of starting a brand. It was just all about wanting to make something special for her. And I was just bragging about it the following day after Lisa loved it at work, and they were just like really my friend at work was just like, yeah, I want one. And I was like, okay, $10. I just like kind of said jokingly. And he said, sure. And then the light bulb went off. Well, maybe other people might want this kind of quality, hot sauce product. And I started doing like social media, like on my wall. So I'm about to make a small batch. Who wants in? And people just like chimed in, slipping into people's DMs, and it just really started right out of the kitchen. And it started in left field where Lisa mainly was writing the labels, and I'm sitting in the kitchen, roasting up the peppers and the Vitamix, and just like trying to get like consistent, flavorful product, and mailing it to friends throughout the States, friends and family. And we did a crowdfunding, and we're about 2.5 years, and we're in 40 stores and farmers markets. We're in about 5 different farmers markets here in Southern Oregon, and it feels like there's a lot of potential for the brand to expand even beyond where we are right now, and I'm pretty excited about it.
That's amazing. And I think what you mentioned about so many sources and just foods in general having preservatives, and you look at the ingredients and you don't even know what half of them are. I mean, New Zealand has the same problem. It's the same problem everywhere in the world. And personally, I have Crohn's disease. So when I was first diagnosed, the first thing the doctor said to me, because no one in my family has Crohn's disease. I'm the first one. So in my case, it's not genetic. We don't know how I got it. And I've had it for almost half my life now. And the first thing the specialist said to me was things like Crohn's disease and different types of irritable bowel diseases and intolerances are actually becoming more and more common now because of all and this is how my gastroenterologist said this to me. He said it's because of all the rubbish that's put in food these days, i.e. preservatives, flavorings, whatever, you name it. And he said, I'm not saying that's how you got Crohn's disease, because medical research is not advanced enough to actually know how people get Crohn's disease and IBD. But he said there's a big correlation between the amount of chemicals used in food, and if you compare the number of people getting different types of food related intolerances compared to 30-40 years ago, so go figure. And I remember when I was first diagnosed, I tried eating food with no gluten and no additives and no preservatives, and it was so hard to find that stuff in the supermarket because everything has got something artificial in it. So I think
even the products that don't necessarily even have preservatives and fillers or binders, like the way that our crops are like created, how they're spraying, pesticides and glyphosate, and how that's getting into the food, and how they're just manipulating and how they're just germinating. Like it's really becoming difficult for the body to process. It's like flour back in my mom's day when she was growing up. She just went to the store and bought flour, and just it was in Italy for the most part. It stays true to its like origin, but in America it became such a real like industry, big industry came in, monocropping, and technology and science was like, innovative. And I heard that a lot of them knew that the direction that they were going wasn't really for the best of the client, but it made good business sense.
Yep.
And
That makes money.
unfortunately, yeah, big money. So like a lot of the products that are, that are not organic and just real simple, even in product wise, are still not really that healthy for us. So I really try to be adamant about what I put in my body. I've made the correlation with, what you eat and how you feel. And, it's really important for me to get out, and I jog into the mountains over here, and it's a lifestyle for me. I just turned 51. Well, I'm actually going to turn 52 in June. And I really made this dedication to myself, like, I want my 50s to be in the best shape of my life. And I feel like I am in the best shape of my life. And I continue to strive to push myself to be in even better shape than where I am right now. And I take responsibility. It's easy to kind of just like be complacent, but at the end of the day, I don't get fulfilled when I do that. I feel better about myself, and I feel my mind's clearer, my body's clearer. And, I'm grateful to be able to be in that position, to look at where my food is coming from, and having the awareness of, putting that together, and try to inspire people to look at that. And the important thing about doing that, I feel, is like it has to be done fun. Unfortunately, a lot of food that is good for you is somewhat boring to eat, and I just come from flavorful background. I just been in a lot of great restaurants. So the places that are great, that take the flavorful part, and they take the good quality, and they merge that. And if you're capable of doing that, which I feel is like a big advantage that we have in the hot sauce brand, is those are the restaurants, whatever product you have, if you're capable of marrying those two concepts together, I feel you're offering something extremely valuable to the consumer. And I strive for that. And I love the reaction that I get from people when I'm at farmers markets and they get to taste the sauce for the first time. Roasting the peppers. Nobody really does that in hot sauces. Just roasting the peppers, the high quality ingredients, the blending of all these different peppers, and people just really tasting all that, love and care that goes into the bottles. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear. And I think when you're talking about your mum's Italian roots, it kind of, I can relate to that, because my parents are from India, which is also a very, flavorsome food and culture and things like that. And it's the same thing there. Like most of the food there is so much better quality. Like they have farmers markets every day where my grandparents in India live. They need something, they just go down there to the market, and there's no question about it being fresh, because it's always fresh. Hardly anything is sprayed on it. And I know when I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, I tried to explain it to my grandparents who live in India, and my grandma just couldn't understand, because she said, "Oh, if you lived in India, you probably never would have got this disease."
Probably, yeah.
I thought, yeah, that's so true. But oh well, it is what it is. So back to pure food and wine. Do you think, I guess, like people had a lot of questions after watching the Bad Vegan documentary, and even after getting to the end, there were still lots of questions. Do you think Sarma was innocent, or do you think there was a part of it where maybe she knew what was going on, but maybe didn't know how to get out of it, or that she was kind of in on this plan with Anthony?
I think a part of it is that Anthony, he knew Sarma had ambition. She wanted to become extremely successful. She wanted to become more nationwide. She saw like the mission of Pure Food and Wine as to bring in more plant-based restaurants, veganism. She felt like it was like a really important mission of hers. And she really knew that a lot of people in the corporate world, that if they would invest into her, and this in any brand that you have, there's a lot of, they get their claws. Once they get their money in, they start weighing in on decisions. And then, a lot of big corporate businesses dilute brands. That's kind of like the nature. And she was very well aware of that. And she didn't want that to happen. And Anthony was listening. He was really acute to hearing that. And Sarma was really, even though, she was a kind person, I only had great experiences when she would hang out with me at the bar, but she wasn't really like an open, like, person about her personal life, and I feel like he like took advantage of that. Cause like at first he came off like he had a lot of money. At first he came off like he wanted to like help. When he sat with me at the bar, he was really like, oh, how long have you been here? Oh, you work so hard. And, telling me everything I want to hear, because, when we expand, I'm going to make sure you get equity. He just knew how to read a room, and he knew how to be charming, and he knew how to be funny. He was witty, and he also was very like large in presence, and Sarma, I feel like, felt secure around him. She was, he has this really larger than life, and he just like, I think just really portrayed himself and ramped it up and used what she wanted with her ambitions. And then when he started taking the money from her and asking her for more money, I feel like that she didn't really have a best friend to like, bounce it off of, and someone to say, hey man, pull the plug on that. Look, what happened again, he called you. She didn't really have that person. So I think it became more introverted, and she became more isolated, and she invested into the fantasy that he was just shelving this money, and that like he had this inexhaustible amount of money that eventually it's like the dangling the carrot, in front of her over and over again, and it's just, like, I do feel like she was a victim, but she, if we can all learn something from it, it's just really stay connected to people, like be open with people in your life, and don't like, you have to have a couple people in your life where you're really just, you can trust and they can trust you, and community, I think, is an important part of this. She didn't have that, and he took full advantage of that. So I do feel like that I don't think she was in on it with him. There was nothing for her to gain out of being in on it with him. Like she just landed up in jail and broke, like what what incentive is that?
Yeah. And I think the other thing, when I was watching it, what really frustrated me was Anthony kept on saying that he's rich and he's got money, but then he kept on asking her for money. And I just thought, but if you are rich, why do you need to ask other people for money? And I was like, when I was watching it with my husband, and I just kept on saying that, I was like, oh my God, you're not rich if you're asking other people for money. So I guess, as a viewer, after you already know what's happened, you're just like, oh, all the signs are there. But it's so hard to actually put yourself in a position of someone that's actually going through it without knowing what the outcome is going to be. The other thing that I I think a lot of people noticed was that Anthony always talked about demons and people or someone being after him, which is obviously psychotic behavior. Either that, or he was just making it up and trying to get Sarma and other people to believe whatever he was saying. But do you think that it was just a story that he used to get Sarma and other people, because he's obviously frauded other people before Sarma? Was it just a story that he was making up to get the money, or do you think he truly believed that demons and whoever else he said was after him was actually after him? And if he actually thought that, then how come no one tried to get help for his obvious mental illnesses?
I mean, it's a great question. I don't really know what goes on in the inner workings of Anthony's mind. You know, he's obviously, you know, the way they operated around his gambling, where he would have multiple tables going at the same time. And, you know, there's obvious, like, I know from a standpoint, you know, in the 90s, I struggled with addiction. And I know that, you know, people with addiction do say things, and they're very manipulative, and they'll do anything to kind of get what they need, you know, what they feel that they need. And so from that like standpoint, from that perspective, I feel that, you know, maybe he did believe that he was invested into his like lie, and but didn't, you know, that it didn't really it didn't mean anything. You know, he was just wanting what he wanted. And I probably think in the back of his head, my personal opinion, I feel like maybe in the back of his head, he felt like that he was going to be able to like hit it so big one day, you know, like the gamblers like fantasy, that they would hit it so big one day that he would be able to, like, you know, funding back Sarma on a restaurant, and they can, you know, but like it's fantasy, you know, it's a dark, you know, addictive, psychotic place. You know, you know, he kept on telling her about like the family, and he just created this whole like world, you know, that he was going to be gutted. And you know, I was like you watching, and I was like, well, gut him, you know. Hasta la vista, you know what I mean? Like, that's what it felt like to me. Just set him free. Like, this isn't my responsibility, you know. But you know, I wasn't in her shoes, and I didn't live her life. So it's easy on the outside to kind of say, you should have done this, you could have done that. And, you know, she was a smart woman, obviously, you know, graduate, like, you know, operating a very successful restaurant. But then she also had a pattern of, you know, mixing around with guys that were, you know, psychopathic. So there is something inside Sarma that draws that in her life, you know, that pulls that kind of person in her life. And, you know, and that cycle will continue to happen subtly or consciously or unconsciously until, you know, we're faced with that, you know, until we look for why I'm inviting this into my life, you know. And I have to, you know, that's where it comes a point where, yeah, you're a victim, but you're also responsible. And you know, it's a difficult journey back to take responsibility, because if you just throw yourself as the victim in life, I feel it enables it doesn't empower you, you know. And you can be a victim of circumstances in life, but it's just like what we do with that can help. If we can help grow from those experiences and heal from those experiences, then we can even help other people that have been in those similar situations, and offer. It can become like a treasure for people, all these like crazy experiences that we've been through.
Yeah, that's right. I guess, yeah, what you're saying is, if you're a victim of this type of thing once, like, you have to learn something from it, and learn what went wrong, how it went wrong, and how, you know, how you can make sure that doesn't happen again, rather than falling into the same trap over and over again. Where is Anthony now, by the way? Do you know?
I think Alan wrote an article about Anthony. Yeah, Alan, who was the guy that was in the documentary, he wrote an article and did some digging around, and there were some political things, like some right-wing political stuff that he was involved with, like he's up to shenanigans and like up to no good, it seems, but he's still out there doing his thing. I think that he was last seen in California, from what I understand. I actually have to be honest, I have to really dive into that article to find out a little bit more. I was just reading kind of blurbs from it, and it's interesting. Alan, who's the guy that was from the Vanity Fair, he did another article in Vanity Fair about what's going on with Shane.
So even after the documentary comes out and like he's been exposed, he's still like up to no good.
Yeah. Not surprising, I mean, what is it like? I think that expression, I forgot who said it, but it's like, oh, the guy who came across the snake, and the snake was screaming, oh, please help me. And the person was like, I can't help you. You're a snake. He goes, no, I'm so sick. I really need your help. Please help me. So then the guy's like, okay, I'm going to help you. Don't bite me. So then he takes in the snake and feeds him and gets him healthy. And then the snake, after it's healthy, it bit him, and he goes, I thought you said you weren't going to bite me. He goes, well, I'm a snake. It's like the nature of the being, what I mean? So it's, I don't know if, I guess the thing is that Anthony can actually transform, the human beings do have the ability to not, to change their plight in life, but will he choose that? That's the thing, will he be compelled? Will he reach a bottom where he feels like he has to change? Or is he just, who knows? Might not even be this lifetime for all I know,
Yeah. I would have thought, like, for most people, ending up in jail and literally having all your secrets spilled out on that Netflix documentary would have been your bottom, but I guess for him maybe it's not, and maybe he can keep going further and further before he realizes. But it just shows what type of people, what some of the people that are in this world, I guess. Which brings me to my next question, actually. The sad reality is that fraudsters and scammers will always be around, like now more than ever, and I think we all know it's just going to get worse and worse as technology develops, and as there's more people in the world, so more people have ideas on how to scam the common person. So I guess no one can do anything to stop fraudsters doing what they do, but as a common person or as a normal person getting on with your daily life, how do you think we can prevent ourselves from being a victim of fraud? And I guess in your situation, in the type of fraud that Sarma and Pure Food and Wine went through.
Yeah, I think I alluded to it a little earlier. I think it's really important to have community. I feel like intuition is a big, intuition is a part, like, I feel that you get from something that is beyond like the norm. And I feel like, staying quiet, meditating, investing into your own well-being, talking to people, having community around you that helps keep you accountable. That's been extremely helpful for me. I think the more that we're in tune with that, like internal voice, we pick up, we can really pick up on people, and we can get a nuance, and we can get messages from, the divine, so to speak. And I feel like that can protect us. And if we have people that are like around us, loved ones, that we're able to like communicate with what our experience is with people that we have in our lives, that can be avoidance. We can essentially make decisions to keep people at bay from, like, don't bring them into your circle, that can help us avoid being taken advantage of. But even I think all of us are still capable of, like, getting anything can happen. It's not like foolproof, but I think doing these things can at least give you a little more of a protective field against, fraudsters like that.
Yeah. So it's been a few years since all of that happened, and obviously, you've moved to the other side of America and you've got your new job, your new ventures. Are you happy with how your life panned out after this unfortunate event?
I have a lot to be thankful for. Like I met my current wife at Pure Food and Wine. She was a person that would come up, and we weren't dating at the time, but I met her there. And I met, I met some incredible chefs there. Even the tragic demise of the restaurant brought me to the West Coast, and which brought me to creating this hot sauce brand, Joey's Hot Sauce. And it pulled me into Oregon, which I live currently now, and that was where we had some friends that lived here, and we looked into like launching the brand without, we don't really, it was all bootstrapped and, like I said, crowdfunding. So we didn't have this like inexhaustible amount of finances to be able to get us to the next place. So I'm grateful, because if all that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I feel like everything that we live in our lives, as difficult as it is, and at the time that we're living it, when we're faced upon with challenges, they make us and they shape us for who we are. And, it's important, and for me to stay connected to something deep within me, to learn the lessons that are happening and unfolding, and for me to get out of my judgment or my anger, and trust, and then pick up the divine wind in the sails when we're all out here in sea, and sometimes the wind is going to blow and we're going to pull up the sail and we're going to fly, and there's the times where the storm's going to come. So life is quite a journey, and I have no regrets. And I have, some painful things in my past, but like I said, I feel like they shaped me for who I am today.
Yeah, it's great to hear that, something good came out of all of that was covered in the documentary. And I think, in the documentary, obviously it's focused on Sarma, but it didn't really focus on where the employees ended up after all this happened. So it's good to hear that you and, other people have actually made something out of their lives after something so horrible happened to all of you. So I guess before we finish up, would you like to let our listeners know your social media handles? So if they want to check out your page or give you a follow.
Yeah, if you're here in the States and the United States of America, I can basically, Joey's Hot Sauce, www.joeyshotsauce.com. You can find my website. It has all of my sauces. You can buy gift boxes. There's 3 different heat levels of my sauces. There's a luxury truffle hot sauce where I'm buying the truffles from the Willamette Valley by the pound, and I'm blending it into the sauce. So there's 10 grams of real wild forage truffles in my truffle hot sauce, not like truffle flavor or truffle extract or truffle oil. There's no McFoolery. It's real truffles just blended into the sauce. Real earthy, beautiful umami from that. You can find that website. You can order anywhere in the States. We're working on trying to expand that beyond the States. But currently our website only ships in within the US. We have our Instagram at Joey's Hot Sauce, and Joey Repice is my last name. I'm on Facebook. I'm even on a little bit on TikTok, and we're going to ramp up our little TikTok game too, because I'm understanding that there's some good opportunities there that we can tap into to just grow our business. We're looking for more distribution. We're looking for partners to help get behind the brand and make the brand even more. I personally see products like potato chips with the Joey's Hot Sauce label on it. I see dressings, I see beef jerkies, and Yeah, I'm a big fan of regenerative agriculture. I even messed around a little bit with some crypto, and I partnered up with Cardano, and we made an NFT, and we launched our NFT that we're actually putting money towards a regenerative agriculturalist, but his name is Hobbs, because I really feel like the negative carbon imprint that they can actually pull carbon into the soil, enriches the ground, brings in rain cycles. I feel like, that is the solution, not this processed food agenda that seems to be being pushed on all of us. So, I'm just passionate about real food, and I'm passionate about flavorful food, my hot sauce. Just come and check out. I'm constantly putting stories of me making the big vats of hot sauce on my Instagram. You can see that. You can see me hanging out with the truffles, throwing it in the blender. I have a great crew that I work with, and they're a great team, and I try to make the best environment for everyone to work in, and I really love them. They're such a great crew. They all work really hard, and that I could be their dad, which is kind of crazy.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was really good to hear, your side of what happened, as well as what you've made out of your life afterwards. And I'm so glad to see that the people in that story did not end up unemployed and all over the place, because what we see on the Netflix documentary is pretty devastating and really sad on all accounts. But for all of you listening out there, I guess, what this story shows is like I said before, you can't stop the frauders and scammers out there, but use your community. If you think someone in your life is doing you wrong somehow, if you have that, I guess, that niggling feeling, talk to someone you trust about it and get their opinion on what's going on. Because if you keep things within yourself, sometimes you don't see the full picture, I guess. So thank you so much for your time today, Joey. And for all of our listeners out there, give his page a follow. He's really, really passionate about what he does. I follow his Instagram page, and it's really cool to see. If you've got any feedback on this episode, you can message us on YouTube or Facebook under our video. Our Facebook page is Coconut Chats, and our email address is coconutchats@gmail.com. But until next time, I hope you all stay safe and keep well. Thank you.